You're listening to Leadership Loading, a podcast that inspires leaders to be continuous learners and provides insight for those making the leap from the front line to the boardroom. My name is Jason McLaren, and I'm an Air Force firefighter veteran and safety expert turned entrepreneur and nonprofit director. I'm sitting down with industry leaders to talk about their leadership traits and lessons they have learned that can make an impact on future leaders. Hey everyone, this is Leadership Loading. I'm your host, Jason McLaren. Today we're discussing leadership and servitude, or servant leadership for some of those people. So servant leadership is a leadership philosophy in which the main goal of the leader is to serve. This is different from traditional leadership where the leader's main focus is thriving for their company or the organization. So today my guest is Rico Lane. He's an Air Force active duty officer, author, and podcast host. I've been on his podcast show. And, he came up, we talked a little bit, and I just like his leadership style, his servant leadership style. So ask him to come on the show today. Rico, thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, what's up, brother, man? Appreciate it. I really am honored to that you wanted me to come on your show and talk about leadership. So I thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. So,
Yep.
the podcast is all about leadership and especially, those coming from the military. That's, I always put a preface on that. So can you tell us a little bit about how you got into the military and what you do?
Yeah, man, it's funny when people ask that because I don't typically have like the normal patriotic answer or whatever. And when I first joined, I didn't think I'd be in as long as I've been in, but I'm definitely making a career out of it. But honestly, so I grew up in Atlanta, didn't have a dad. I didn't know my dad. And so at the age of 19, I got my girlfriend at the time pregnant. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, I don't have, I just got a high school diploma. I was trying to get in college at the time. I had kind of messed around and not took my football scholarships, not took my college scholarships that I had. And so it was just a lot going on. And so when we found out she was pregnant, I was just committed to one, regardless of what happens, I'm going to be a good dad, So that's kind of what's my motivation. And then she actually had a cousin who had joined the Air Force a few years or a couple years before this happened. Well, her cousin's husband actually joined. And so she was like, you should try to join. Well, ironically, I was actually going to join the Army at 17, but my mom was not hearing it. In her mind, she thought for sure I was going to just join and die. And at 17, you got to get their consent. And so long story short, I had a tattoo of my mom's name on my neck. And so when I turned 18 and tried to join the Army, they wouldn't let me unless I had it removed. So I went through a couple of surgeries to get it removed. Well, I was like, you know what, forget it. I'm not going to join after 2 surgeries. Fast forward to me getting my girl pregnant. I was like, well, if the Air Force accept me with the way the tattoo is, then I'll join. And, the rest was history. They let me in, and it's been 16 and a half years later.
That's odd because usually I think the Air Force is the most restrictive, but that worked out for you.
So basically what they did was, so by the time I went in there, my tattoo was basically it was a scar on my neck. You could still see it a little bit, but it was just it looked like a scar. And they made me put on the blues uniform. And when I wore the blues uniform fully clothed, it covered up the tattoo. So that's what allowed me to get in.
Awesome. So you're an officer now?
Yeah, man. So actually I went in and enlisted. It's a long story. So I joined, when I first joined, I was a cop, security forces, basically a cop for those of y'all who are not familiar with security forces. And our job was security and law enforcement. So in the Air Force, that's probably the closest thing you can get to a infantry in the fight type of job. And so that's what I did when I first joined. And so to be honest, it was cool because you had authority as a cop, even though you didn't have a rank. But at the same time, it took you away from your family a lot. I deployed to Iraq twice. And, a couple of times I honestly didn't think I was going to come back. And I got to a point where I was like, I really want to retire, but I can't retire if I stay in this career field. I probably won't even make it to 20. And so basically what I did was I had a leader who gave me some great advice. He was like, anytime you're doing something that you don't like, do your best at it. Go extra hard at it, because what that do will open up other opportunities. And so he was like, if you don't want to be a cop your whole career, the best thing you could do for yourself excel at being a cop, and then the Air Force would give you other opportunities. They had a thing called cross training for first term airmen. I'm sure you're familiar with it. And so I joined for 6 years, and at your 5.5-year mark, you can cross over to another career field. And honestly, me crossing over to another career field was the best thing that happened to me, because I went from like a dumb jock cop into contracting, which contracting is basically like a buyer for the Air Force. And so when I got there, I was an NCO at this point, so I had troops and stuff, and my troops had already had their degrees, already had their master degrees, and I'm thinking like, man, what have I been doing with my life? So I finally got smart, buckled down, went to school, completely online, got my bachelor's in business, eventually got my master's in adult education. But once I got my bachelor's, I put in for OTS, and I had such a good career, because honestly, I made the rank of E6 in under 7 years. And if anybody know anything about the military, that's not an easy feat. And so the fact that I had a good career and I got my degree, my boss was more than happy, willing to send me to officer training school. And I got picked up for officer training school first time around. And that's when the Air Force made me a program manager, which is what I am now.
Awesome. So, all right, let's get into the questions here. We're talking about servant leadership, and first, I guess, tell us why you think servant leadership's a powerful management style.
Yeah, man. So one, I know it's a powerful management style because I've been using it my entire career, and I've had a fairly successful career. But in reality, and I'm not sure if your listeners know this, and I know everybody's belief system is different. And so when I speak on this is just my belief system. If you don't agree with it, that's on you. But for me, I think people spend tons of money on leadership classes. They spend they go through different trainings and all this kind of stuff. When in reality, we have the greatest example of a leader in the Bible. And so to me, one of the best leaders that ever lived on this earth was Jesus. And if you think, and whether you believe in him or not, just the historical facts of him, if you look at what he did and the fact that his followers are still leading his mission today, it's a great example of a great leader. And Jesus himself said he didn't come to be served. He came to serve others. And so that's completely opposite of what you think about when you think about leadership. It's completely opposite of what business people typically do. They typically like, once I get to a certain position, once I get to a certain rank, I'm the boss, shut up, do as I say. And that can be effective. I mean, if you look at Hitler, his people follow him out of fear. But me personally, I found that people would give their lives up for you if they know you actually care for them. And so if you just take the opportunity to serve others, then they're going to help you complete the mission 10 times over. And that's just how I always operated. And it just worked out for me. All my troops, they respect it. They still talk to me. They still call me. When we're not at work, we're like the closest of friends. When we're at work, they show me the utmost respect. And I honestly believe it's because they know that I care enough to serve them. They know that if I ask them to do something, I'm gonna be right there doing it with them. And so that's why I think servant leadership is a powerful leadership method.
Yeah, definitely. And that kind of leads me to my next question on why do servant leaders have to be humble?
You know what, man? Honestly, I think people just in general need to be humble. People look at being humble as a weakness, but honestly, it's a huge strength. So like, I had the opportunity to teach at the University of Georgia. I talked to ROTC cadets, and one of the things I told the cadets is like, nobody cares what you know until they know that you care, right? And so a part of being humble is being transparent. And so with me, I'm always transparent with my weaknesses. I'm always transparent with my downfall. I'm always like, if I got a troop who's like a super technical nerd type of guy and I suck at computer stuff, I'm upfront with that. I'm humble enough to say, hey man, even though I'm your supervisor, you're good at this, and that's a weakness for me. So we're gonna allow your strength to make the team stronger. I'm not gonna have a big head and be like, oh well, I'm the boss, so I gotta do it. No, if you're better at it than me, then you do it and you teach me and the rest of the people on the team. And what that does is just strengthen the team and make the mission go a lot better. And another thing about being humble and being a leader, a lot of people don't think about this when they think about leadership, but a huge thing that every good leader needs to have is dynamic followership. And so, and I know that's not traditional. When you think of leadership, you don't normally think of followership, but a dynamic follower, the word dynamic just basically means like continuously being productive and having productive change. And then a followership, just having the willingness to serve and follow somebody else, right? And so if I'm a dynamic follower, if I communicate with my leaders, two-way chain, back they communicate down, I communicate back up. If I'm willing to serve them and take their leadership, and by the time I'm in a leadership position, then people are gonna respect that and give the same thing back to me. And so being humble, man, not even just with leadership, just in every area of your life, I think it will give you great return on your investment.
Awesome. Yeah, I think, I'm of the same mindset, not about just telling my people what to do and being like I'm the boss, but being out there and serving for them. And I've always had my followers say, you're one of the best guys we've had, because a lot of in my career fields, it was always like, that top down mentality. And so I think being humble helps with that and helps you, see how your followers are going through their career, if that makes sense. So.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, man. Like I said, when people know you care, they're gonna care. And so, like, if you got a troop who's going through something, or a troop or a subordinate, or whatever you want to call them, that are going through things, and you actually take the time to show that you are interested in it, or you care about it. Like, one of the best things my supervisor did for me was he remembered that my son had a football game. And so I was teaching in Athens, Georgia, but my son lived in Atlanta, Georgia, and so it was like an hour and a half away. And so we had what did we have? We had like leadership live for our cadets that day, and we typically get out super late. My boss was like, "Hey, ain't your boy playing football today?" And and so he was playing for his middle school, so it was during the weekdays. And he was like, "Man, get out of here, leave early, get out there in time for you to go check that out." And I had told him about this like 2 weeks earlier. And just the fact that he remembered that and did that, guess what? When I come back to work, I'm just gonna bust my butt even harder for him, because I know that he actually cares about my interests as well. It's not just, oh, he's my boss, he just want to get the mission done. So
yeah, I've had people say that even in the civilian world. I'll be like, hey, take off early. I know, they'd be talking about, like you said, something going on with their kids, or they got a church thing or something they want to go to, and I know they're not going to get out. I'm like, well, take off, and I'll stay here or whatever. And they just think it's so out of the ordinary because they've been led by bad people in the past. So.
Yeah.
All right. One of the Air Force core values is integrity, and I think that's real important with leadership. And so, do you think that's why almost every service branch has integrity as one of their core values? So you think that's why many military leaders are servant leaders?
Oh yeah, man. So that's actually where a lot of my leadership style come from. So again, following Jesus, but then also following the Air Force core values, all three of them, man. And I tell people all the time, if you can do those three things, you just operate in those three areas, you'll be good. So with the whole integrity thing, is that the reality is this, man. If people can't trust you, then you're no good to them. If you don't operate with integrity, nobody wants to do business with you. Like, and regardless of the relationship you're in, nobody wants to be played. Nobody wants to feel like they can't trust that person. So whether it's a leader, whether it's in marriage, whether it's in the church, wherever you're at, if you're not operating with integrity, then what you tell me, I can't follow it, I can't trust it. And especially with something like the military, where your life depends on it, if you're gonna send me in a situation where my life depends on, I gotta be able to know that I trust you. I gotta be able to know that you operate with integrity. And a lot of times for leaders, it's a hard thing to do, right? But again, I go to the example of Jesus. There's a story in there where the people were literally trying to trip him up and test his integrity. And they were basically just talking about how you got to pay taxes to Caesar. So they asked Jesus, was like, will you pay these who do you pay your taxes to Caesar? I'm paraphrasing huge here. And basically he was like, give Caesar what's due to him. God was due to God. Tough question specifically meant to trip him up. But with his integrity, he knew that, yeah, he got to follow the laws of their land or whatever. But at the same time, ultimately, he got to be true to his heavenly Father. And so just hearing those kind of stories and seeing those kind of things, it just reminds me that even though operating with integrity sometimes may be hard, that transparency, that the fact that people can trust you, it goes a long way.
All right. So do you think servant leaders have better influence than those in strict positions of authority? So like, because you can be a leader over somebody and not be their boss, and
Yeah.
so do you have any experience with that, like being a leader over someone that you're not actually their boss, but you're having to have that influence?
Man, you know what? The job that I'm in now is like that. And I'll be honest, it's one of the toughest things I've done in my entire career. So for those of y'all who don't know what a program manager is, it's basically like a project manager. And I would say on the civilian side, I don't have a lot of experience on the civilian side, so I don't know if it's the same on the civilian side, but on the military side, when you're a program manager, then you're not, most of the people that you're managing are not your subordinates or your troops, right? And so for example, me as a program manager, I'll have a contracting guy on my team, a person who writes the contracts. I have a finance person on my team, somebody who gives the money. I have like an engineer on my team, the technical expert, and like a bunch of other people, right? And then I got my boss that I answer to. And every one of those people on my team, I'm none of their bosses, right? And so the hard thing about doing that is like, when you think of traditional leadership, like that strict leadership, you can't say, hey, finance guy, I need the money right now and get it to me because I said so, or your job's on the line. No, you got to figure out how to be a people person. You got to figure out, hey, finance man, what's going on your side of the house? Is there anything I can help you with? Or is that finance person, I know he like, brownies or whatever. I may just show up one day with some brownies and be like, hey, buddy, here's some brownies. I know you like these or whatever. My wife made some. I just want to share it with you. And again, it goes back to that serving others. So I'm not actually their boss, but I'm managing that program. So I'm responsible that it stays on schedule, on time, and we're getting the government what the taxpayers are paying for, right? And so I have to figure out how to work with these people, even though I'm not their boss. And so a lot, especially in the military, you feel like you get the rank and people just gonna do whatever you say because of your rank. Well, in my career field, it's probably the least military career field in the Air Force because it's only officers, so there's no enlisted members, and then officers and a bunch of civilians. And these civilians, they're getting paid from their companies or they're getting paid from the government if they're a government employee, and I'm not their boss. So basically, I got to figure out how to manage them, but at the same time get the mission done. Because ultimately, if the mission fails, or if the project or the program fails, or it's late, or whatever the case may be, I got to answer to my actual boss. And so it is a hard thing to do. And I think the best way of doing that is just, again, letting people know you're here to serve, letting them know you're here to help, however they need it, and then they'll be willing to help you back in return.
Yeah, and it's like what you said, the civilian side's almost exactly the same. So my 9 to 5, I'm a program manager also for a big healthcare system. And like you said, I've got 15, 16 hospitals I work with, and I don't have anybody that reports to me. I'm over 2 different people at each hospital as far as coordinating the projects, but like you said, they don't report to me, so I have no authority over what they do. I'm just there to, like you said, provide help and try to guide them in the best direction for the system. And then also on my side hustle, my consulting jobs, yeah, if anything, I'm the subordinate because they're hiring me, but it's up to me to influence them and influence their departments or whoever they're hiring me to kind of train.
Yeah, I think at SOS, which is Squadron Officer School, it's a leadership school for captains that we got to go to when we put on captain and before we put on major. And in there, they had this thing called full dynamic leadership or whatever, and they talk about leading up, leading down, and then leading across. And I think what we're describing is that leading across. And one of the biggest things that helps out when you're leading cross, meaning you're leading peers or you're leading people that you're not in charge of. One of the biggest things that helps is having a common goal or a common enemy or whatever you want to call it, having a common thing that you're trying to achieve. And so, like it says, united we stand, divided we fall, or your enemies or whatever, however you want to look at it. And so I think when you're doing that, you have to figure out what motivates them, what motivates you, what are y'all both trying to do, and then figure out how to paint that picture of, hey, let's work together to attack this common goal or this common thing we're trying to do. And I think when you're leading the cross, that's your best friend.
Definitely. And I talk a little bit about leadership influence in episode 6. If anybody wants to go back and listen to it, it was a quick episode I did back then. But anyway, so Rico, tell us about, you have a book on Amazon?
Oh yeah, man. It's called Blestimony. I honestly, I'm doing a bad job of promoting it. I really don't promote it too much because of the nature of what I do. So one, I'll tell you, I'm blessed. The military treats me well, pays me well. We got stationed out in California, and I honestly didn't think we'd be able to afford to live out here, but we're doing fine out here. And so with my ministry, with my podcast and my book and all that kind of stuff, I struggle with using God to get money, right? That's something that me and my wife talk about a lot. And so, but I invest a lot of money into the ministry. It costs to do the podcast. It costs to have a website. It costs to have an app. And so the book was simply a way of, hey, if you buy my book, it'll still help fund the ministry versus just asking people to give me money. And so, in the book is interesting because it's really what saved my life. I started realizing that the stuff that was written in the Bible actually happened in my life, even though it was written so long ago. And so what I did was, as I started reflecting back on my life and everything, and I was starting to read the Bible, I would consider I was an atheist for a long time. I really didn't believe in God for a while. And then it was this motivational speaker named Eric Thomas, who was like, I was listening to his stuff when it came to my weight loss goals and my fitness goals, and I was applying it, and it was actually working. And then I found out he was a preacher, and so I was like, well, if I'm listening to his other stuff and it's working for me, maybe I should relook at how I look at the Bible. And so when I actually started reading the Bible for myself, I started realizing that the stuff was written in there was happening in my life. So my book on Amazon is basically like my life story, but it's backed up by the Bible. So each chapter, it'll have a Bible scripture, started when I was a kid. So I think the first scripture in there is like, train a child up in the way he should go. When he's older, he won't depart. And so I started telling my story about my life as a kid, about how my grandma introduced me to God, and how when I realized that the person who I thought was my dad wasn't my dad, that kind of crushed my faith. From my time where I had my first kid, from my time when I was in Iraq, and God got me through that, from the time where I stopped believing and then I started back believing. But everything that happened in my life, it was literally backed up by the Bible. And so that's what my book is about. It's called Blestimony. It's a play on words, blessings and testimonies. And basically we just help people understand the Bible by having somebody else share their testimony. And so we do the same thing on the podcast too.
Definitely. Like I said earlier, I've been on that podcast, so I believe my episode's coming out in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, so this Tuesday is a bonus episode. The next Tuesday is yours. Yep. Awesome. So you'll be getting an email from me on that.
Good deal. All right. Any closing comments for the listeners?
Let's see. The one thing I will say, and the one thing we didn't really talk about, so if I had to close with anything, and the biggest leadership lesson that I learned, it didn't come from the Air Force. It came from my belief. But the Great Commandment says, you love God first and you love others. And so for those of y'all who don't believe in God, I understand that. But at the very minimum, the advice that I would give to everybody is to love others. And so can you imagine how successful businesses will be, how successful of a parent you will be, how successful as an employee you will be if you just operated with love instead of like competition or trying to overdo somebody. I'm telling you, if you can solve somebody else's headache, that makes you a valuable commodity. If you can solve somebody else's problem, that makes you a valuable commodity. And a lot of people typically want to keep everything, like for example, with everything going on with this coronavirus right now, everybody going out and buying toilet paper and buying all hoarding up all the food and stuff. So now people who are elderly and people who are having a hard time getting to the stores, when they finally get there, they can't even buy things. And so if we stop operating like me, and start operating like let's help everybody do better, then you're going to make yourself a hot commodity. You're going to be the type of leader that people are going to want to follow. And I will argue that you'll leave a legacy that people will talk about long after you die. So my biggest advice for leaders is to just lead with compassion, lead with love, and then also in the spirit of the core values, excellence in all you do. Go extra hard at whatever you do. Go extra hard at being a good leader. Go extra hard at being a good parent. Go extra hard at being a good follower. And you're gonna have a good return on your investment. So that's my advice.
Definitely. Well, thanks, Rico. Thanks for coming on the show. Everyone, reach out to Rico on his podcast. I'll put his book in the book list on our website, leadershiploading.com. Click book list, and it'll be on there. And you can go and support his show. Thanks, Rico.
I appreciate it, brother.
Thanks for listening to the Leadership Loading Podcast. You can support this podcast on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/leadershiploading to get access to exclusive content, chats, and a whole lot more. Again, that's patreon.com/leadershiploading, or visit our website, leadershiploading.com, for more options.